Nebraska Preps postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's that big voice guy. That means we're here for another week, a recap, if you will. It's a full-fledged smorgasbord because we've got to go through a lot. It's Nebraska Preps postgame. That's my man, Jacob Padilla. I am ODB, and here we go. JP, how was it, man? 6 days for you? 32 or 36 games? 36?
36, including watching Nebraska in the tournament game instead of one of them.
And twice when I was talking to you, one time you were trying to catch what was going on with the Creighton game. The other, you were trying to catch what was going on with Nebraska basketball. Like, don't these people know that you're a busy man?
Yeah, it's insane week every year, but it's fun too. This one is just happened to be twice as insane as it normally is.
Yeah, man. I mean, so where do you want to start? It was all over the place. You and I off pod were talking summer hoop schedules and who's playing where and who's going to fill all these high school openings, right? Because there are a few of them to be had out there.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. It's crazy. It just throughout the week, you kept hearing more and more, and every day. And like Mike Sauter was going crazy because he had to write all these breaking news stories like in between games. He's like going nuts trying to talk to people and get this stuff ready while he's watching games. And
how much do you feel, real quick, maybe it's not so much the pandemic, but the last 2 years in schools from an educational standpoint has taken a toll on coaches in athletics?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I haven't really talked to any of these guys to like get their thought process on why now. But like you said, there are a lot of guys moving up to administrative roles. Obviously, Eric Barron's doing the same, doing that. Brian Spichka moving up. JJ Stoffel, we know, going to coach another year, but he's going to move on up there too. So, and then you've got some of the other more experienced coaches deciding to call it a career. Yeah. Dan Moore, it's a great run with Papillion La Vista, stepping down. Like, they're just so many openings right now. Nolan Riley leaving Elkhorn South. Just going to be crazy to see how all these schools fill all these openings. Plus, you've got new schools opening up.
Especially, and maybe more so on the boys' side, even though the girls is pretty good too. A lot of good young talent coming back at a multitude of schools. Now, those aren't necessarily the schools that have openings, although we'll see what Coach Cannon decides. At Millard North, the defending back-to-back state champs. Coach Etchenmiller, you got to think, has got a good shot at probably getting that job if Coach Cannon decides to do anything. But there are a lot of schools with a lot of good young players.
For sure. And so hopefully the schools make good decisions, able to find great coaches that can kind of lead these kids forward and help them reach their potential. Yeah.
Let's start out. Let's go all the way down. Let's start in C1.
All right.
One of the better stories going, obviously, we got a father-son tandem, one of two, to win state championships, although this one for Ashland Greenwood and the Jacobsons are at different schools. But still special nonetheless, right, with the run that Ashland went on.
For sure. And, I mean, we sat here at this table talking all season long about how great the C1 tournament had a chance to be. And boy, did it live up to it.
Yes, it did.
You had an 8-1 in the first round for a team that was making its first appearance in nearly a century. You had a record-setting individual performance in the semis, and then you had a game winner at the buzzer in the final. I don't think you could have asked for anything more from the C1 field. And obviously, with Auburn making a run back to fourth straight final, you knew it wasn't going to be quite as high-paced as the semis against a Kearney Catholic team where Ashland Greenwood, Kearney Catholic kind of going back and forth a little bit more, and it was going to be a grinder. Ashland Greenwood knew going in. It certainly was that, right down to the very end.
Yeah, and how about this? How about Auburn finally not winning a close game?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they went through it in the opening round. Fort Calhoun took them down to the wire. In the semifinals and winning in overtime. And this time, Ashland Greenwood was the team that found a way to get it done.
And it looked like maybe it was like, here we go again, Auburn. Ashland Greenwood pulled ahead in that fourth quarter, and then Auburn made that run down the stretch. Maverick Binder hit that huge three after for his first bucket of the game. He hadn't really gotten many opportunities all game long, but there he was, found the ball wide open on the wing and buried it to give them a chance there. They tied it up at the very end. Ryan Binder drove in there and finished with contact. Couldn't get the free throw to fall for the go-ahead point, but Jacob Mose trusting Cale Jacobson, which, I mean, I don't blame him. That's right. Kids that's always going to make the right play, and he's like, not going to timeout. Go see what we can make happen. And it took their time. They had, 20-some seconds left there, and took their time, brought him off a ball screen, got downhill, and defender helped off the corner. Jacobson saw it, kicked it out, and Evan Shepard, who hadn't hit a three since the first possession of the semifinal. He was 0 for 4 in the championship game. To that point, Jacobson put it in the shooting pocket, rose up, knocked it down. Buzzer had sounded by the time it hit the floor.
It was interesting, too. It seemed like for the majority of that game, they wanted to push Jacobson left. So I thought it was interesting that the screen came that way. He turns the corner and goes left. He did a good job of getting depth, too, because he didn't just come off the screen hard. He got downhill that really forced you to kind of collapse. Then he gets the much easier kick to the corner. I thought it was a thing of beauty, and he didn't panic. He was in a hurry without rushing.
Yeah, and that's kind of his game. He's the kind of guy that can beat you in every single way possible. He'll read the situation and make the right play. And we talked about semifinal, 43 points.
An efficient 43 points.
Yeah, 13 to 17 shooting, 14 to 14 from the line. Just an unreal performance. It made every single play down the stretch that broke the previous C1's single game state tournament record of 41. And they needed every bit of it to kind of pull away from Kearney Catholic at the end there. And just to go from that to scoring 12 points but making the game-winning assist in the final, that just kind of shows you the kind of player that Jacobson is and the trust he has in his teammates.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because, I mean, you could be criticized at some point if that shot doesn't go in, that, hey, you want your best player to take the shot. But he made the right basketball play and was rewarded.
For sure. And great story. Great week for the Shepherd clan. Evan is he moved back to Nebraska from, I believe they were up in Illinois, his family, cousins with the Fremont Shepherds, and he hits a game winner for this championship day after Sarah Shepherd and the Fremont Tigers win the Class 8 girls championship. So.
Yeah, a lot in that, right? And listen, if you're Ashland and you get the 36-33 final, you had four times in 4 quarters that a team scored in single digits. Points were very, very hard to come by. That second quarter, I didn't know if the fans were going to make it through. I mean, they scored 10 points total in that game, and you're thinking, holy smokes, this got Beatrice kind of game, or not Beatrice, Auburn's kind of game written all over it.
Yeah, for sure. But again, made the play down the stretch there. You kind of felt like it was going Auburn's way, but Ashland Greenwood's like, nope, this is our time. And heck of a shot. That's probably, I think, the best moment of the tournament for sure.
What did you make of the decision-making down the stretch for Auburn after the late flurry? Would you have been more aggressive, or are you just thinking to yourself, well, it's kind of the way that Auburn likes to play?
Yeah, I think it's probably gave them the best chance to win versus – you try to go any faster. The point is you got to get points, and it was such a low-scoring game. They didn't have to make up 4 possessions. It was 7, I think, was the most it got to. So they were able to, and with Ashland Greenwood kind of struggling a little bit, a couple of turnovers, probably a rough call on an offensive foul there. Yeah. A couple missed free throws in the fourth.
Yeah. It was bang, but I get it where, maybe folks from AG weren't super happy with the call, but I mean, bang play. I don't think that one came down to officiating.
No, not. But again, Auburn they did what they need to give themselves a chance there. They played the game out pretty well. So yeah, credit to Ashland Greenwood. They made all the plays. Auburn gave themselves every opportunity to win that game, and Ashland had the ball last.
When you're taking a look at, you want to hop up to B or go down to C2?
Let's go C2.
All right, let's talk C2.
again, another credit to Humphrey Lindsay Holy family.
Man,
this unreal run.
Death, taxes, and holy name Lindsay,
Humphrey Lindsay Holy family.
Thank you, Humphrey Lindsay Holy family. That's the H's with the space in the middle, but that's why people abbreviate it.
It wasn't the prettiest game.
No.
Wasn't the most efficient game. 43-42 in overtime was the final. But another exciting game that went right down to the wire, and huge plays by the Bulldogs, and then a near miss from GICC. They had the ball last, down by 1, on the corner across from their bench. Across from the other bench. They had to go the length of the court, pulled it back, chucked it, perfect pass to Gil Jetmer, their 6'8" center, caught it and went up, had to go up quick. There's like less than 2 seconds left, and just put it up a little bit short there. Would have been the game winner. They could not have asked for any better execution on that last play, except for the shot going in.
And you take a look at GICC's. I mean, they lost to York early. I think St. Cecilia, and I'm missing one. Kearney Catholic got them, I think, earlier in the week. But that one's set up. And listen, when you're 27-1 coming into that one, like Humphrey Lindsay Holy family was, you got to expect a pretty tall task. But once that thing got into overtime, you kind of felt like GICC was going to have the opportunity because they got it to where they wanted it.
And Jacob Suits had fouled out.
At the end
of regulation. So their best player, he's been the guy that they run their offense through all year long. Just had a great season and fouled out and had to watch the entire overtime.
You know what's funny about that game? A couple of those early fouls that he picked up, you don't think much of, like, ooh, not there, right? That's a little ticky-tack. Don't run the risk. I don't think at that time you thought that later on, like in the fourth quarter, that he was going to put himself in position to foul out, right? There were a couple of those I think he'd like back on kind of some silly plays.
Well, and the post-game press conference was great. We had both Suits twins up there with Coach Hesse, and I asked Jason about kind of winning it for Jacob, and like he started his answer with, well, Jacob kind of has a tendency to get in foul trouble, and it makes me really mad. Yeah. So, like those two went back and forth the whole time, just like perfect. I mean, those are brothers right there for sure. But Jason stepped up. They kind of ran their offense through him in the overtime, and ended up going 4 for 6 from the free throw line. Hit the go-ahead free throw. Did just enough to get it done, despite Marcus Lowry going off for 26, 9 boards, just a tremendous performance. Isaac Herbeck's their leading scorer, and they just could not get him going. He dealt with foul trouble all game long. The Bulldogs really swarmed him, made life difficult for him. Finished with just 1 bucket all game long before fouling out. So credit to their defense. They Bulldogs got 16 apiece from the 2 Suits twins, and nobody else had more than 2 buckets. So it really was a grinder, and they made enough plays in that overtime to pull it out 6-5.
Yeah, I think Jacob's ability to make free throws too really kept them in it, because it was getting dicey early on, but their ability to generate points from the foul line, I think, really helped them out.
Yeah, 8 of 10 for Jacob, and 6 of 8 from the free throw line for Jason. And Humphrey Lindsay Holy family 0 for 3 from 3, and they won a state title. That's pretty incredible. And you look at this senior class, this 4-year run for the Bulldogs. 116 is their record over 4 years, with 3 state titles.
Is that pretty good?
And a semifinal appearance.
I
think so.
I think that's pretty good too.
And to make that run in D1 over 3 years, and then move up to C2, and have their best season yet record-wise.
And was that Jacob talking about when they saw the schedule come out and he saw the move to C2? It kind of just created a new challenge that they seem to embrace right from the jump.
It was one of them. I forget now. But yeah, they talked about that. And it's like right away, like, all right, here we go. It's go time. And credit to Coach Hesse, and credit to the twins too, because Jason, first 3 years, was the guy for Humphrey Lindsay Holy family. He was the leading scorer. He scored 1,000 points during his junior year, I believe. This year, they changed things around, and Jacob, who's going to be playing baseball in college, Jason's going to play basketball. They're both going junior college. But they ran their offense through Jacob, and he had a phenomenal season. He's a little bit more of the post guy versus Jason, kind of more of a perimeter guy. And Hesse was like, hey, we know this shooting is up and down. You never quite know what you're going to get down at state from the perimeter, but post play, free throws, buckets inside, you can carry that to the state tournament. And so from the start, I guess it kind of worked itself out throughout the season, but they changed things around, ran things through Jacob, and Jason was just fine with that. He played his role. He's still a double-digit scorer. He kind of basically was their point guard for the most part. He ran things quite a bit, handled the ball quite a bit, but Jacob was the one that they ran all their offense through, and the team really embraced that change, and it paid off.
Well, when you're taking a look at this track record in terms of their accomplishments, where do you kind of rank the dominance? We've seen some crazy runs from schools. Auburn just finished one, but most recently, where do you kind of put that in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, that's right up there. Obviously, Cam Biner and Auburn, 3 straight titles, great 4-year career there. But the fact that they did it in 2 different classes, and the 2 twins, obviously they've got plenty of teammates. Not all of them quite played the same role as freshmen, but have those 2 significant pieces, freshman through senior year. Again, 116 record. I think they mentioned. I think Joe Hesse thought Lucas Vogt and Dylan Butler might have hit that century mark.
Another blast from the not so long past with Vogt.
But outside of that, like winning 100 games in 4 years is pretty remarkable, and to do it with that win percentage is just incredible. So it's one of the better kind of 4-year stretches that we've seen. And then credit to the school too, because you flip over to the girls, and they got it done as well. And they're down in D1 still, but they
I was going to say upset. I don't think that's an upset, but in terms of schedule, right? I mean, Shelton had the better record, but I think Humphrey, Lindsay, Holy Family was probably the more historic program.
Yeah, and credit to Ashton Schneider, who had to overcome multiple knee injuries throughout her career. Came back and double 12 and 14 in the championship game to lift Humphrey to 42-34 win over Shelton. And they mentioned the girls were there kind of watching the boys win it all, and they're like, this is awesome, but we want to feel that for ourselves. And kind of seeing that really fired them up. Obviously, you're going to be motivated anyway going to the state title game, but that gave them just that little bit more. It's like, hey, we want to have this feeling. We want to join these guys here. I'm sure they probably want to make sure that the boys didn't have bragging rights as well.
Hey, so when you're are you one of those folks? We saw it a little bit with Waverly. We've seen it with Bennington, where a winning culture permeates a winning culture throughout the sports, or do you think that has more to do with sharing of the athletes in multiple sports?
That's probably part of it, and I think that's a huge part of it in terms of if you've got multiple, you've got athletes that are key players in multiple sports. But it really does, I think, come down to the leadership, and he said the culture, and a culture from one program isn't going to permeate to another if they don't have the right leadership that can emphasize that as well and create the same kind of environment for their team. So credit to that whole school for just kind of what they've built there, particularly with their basketball programs.
You want to go Parkview Christian, or you want to talk St. Pat's?
We can. We'll start on Parkview Christian real quick. 64-48 win for Parkview over O'Neill St. Mary's in the championship. And this is a Parkview team that made it last year, and they came up just short. Kind of got handled a little bit from Falls City Sacred Heart, I believe. And they lost their 2 leading scorers from that team, and I believe 4 of their top 5. And they brought back Michael Alt was really the only significant contributor from that team. And they brought in some new guys, had some guys step up, and to get back here and get over the hump is an incredible accomplishment for Coach Nathan Godwin and that team.
And it's Kachaluski, correct?
Yeah.
Victor.
Yeah.
We just go with the V.
foreign exchange student from Belarus who nearly messed around and had a triple-double in the championship
Messed
game.
around and had a triple-double.
10 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, just 2 turnovers. Terrific performance. Alt, like I said, the one guy that was on this stage last year and played a big role.
Ulrich's ability to clean the glass.
Yeah. Alt finished with 19 points, 5 boards. Jaquez Curry, 6'8". We won't try to guess at his weight, but
no,
phenomenal game. 17 points, missed 1 shot, hit 2 threes, 8 boards, a few blocks in there. Just phenomenal performance start to finish. They got out to a 17-9 lead in the first quarter with 14 points in the paint. They were just getting out, running, attacking the paint. And they never settled down. They got that big lead early and never let it go.
Once they got past once they got past Sacred Heart in convincing fashion, I think it was, 12, 15-point win, 15-point win, 46-31, whatever that was. Did you start to feel pretty good that they were going to turn the corner?
Yeah.
That had kind of been their bugaboo, right?
Yeah, and, I mean, they made the tournament as a 6 seed, but kind of once they got those wins under the belt early, like, okay, it may be 6 seed, but this team's got it's got some pieces, and you see them out there, like some of the players they have for that level. Again, like you don't see like a guy like Curry too often at that level. And Alt again had that championship experience. He'd played in that game before, and O'Neill St. Mary's had made it to state as well and had that experience, and that whole group basically came back from last year. Credit to Aiden Hedstrom, who had a great career kind of leading the way for them. But, yeah, it just seemed like once that game got started, like, they're going to do this. They just clearly looked like the superior team from start to finish.
And how about the barn burner with St. Pat's and Loomis? Again, another close back and forth. I mean, the environment as a whole, and it was either you or Mike that had one of the great pictures from the corner just panning. Oh, it might have been Dallas Sweet. I'm trying to remember who it was. Just looking at all the people at PBA at one given point, whether it was the guys or the gals playing, were just unbelievable environment for some of these close games.
And especially for the past couple of years, obviously 2 years ago there was very few people in the arena. It was such a strange environment. And even last year it wasn't quite the same as we were kind of working way back. This year, especially for that Class A game, like there were people filling the upper sections there. So it was just phenomenal environment. And some of these games lived up to the hype for sure. You couldn't have asked for much more. And you mentioned North Platte St. Pat, 65-57 win over Loomis. And just phenomenal performances from Jack Hess and Brecken Erickson, who's just a sophomore throughout the whole tournament. I don't know what Erickson had for rebounds in the first game, but I know he scored in double figures all 3 games, and he had a double-double in at least of the last 2. And then Hess, who has been a big-time scorer like early on in his career.
Potentially, yeah.
In this tournament, he wasn't the leading scorer. He did everything else. He had he finished with 14 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds in the title game. He had, I believe, 7 assists, 11 points, a few rebounds in the semifinal win. I was there, too, over Burwell. So just kind of transforming his game to do a little bit of everything that his team needed him to, and putting his teammates in great situations to succeed. Caleb Munson added 12 points as well. So a great performance by North Platte St. Pat's. And then defensively, did a great job on Quinn Johnson and not letting him get any space. He made 1 3 the entire game. It was 1 of 6. And this is a guy that's the state's all-time leader in made three-pointers.
He can shoot it.
And he's the kind of guy that he'll cross you out double time, triple crossover, step back, bury it right in your face. Like, they did a great job not giving him any space to get clean looks. And he tried to lead him back in that fourth. They made a push there, but North Platte St. Pat's had built up a big enough lead that they're able to kind of hold on and win that thing.
Before we get to B-boys and A-boys, I want to jump over to girls before we run out of time, because I thought there were 2 really, really impressive performances. Starting in B, with the back and forth, you were in attendance for that one as well, with Elkhorn North and Scott. Both on the boys and girls side from Omaha Scott, I was surprised at dominance is too strong of a word, but the level of efficiency in which both Elkhorn North and the Roncalli boys played with against both SCUT programs.
Yeah, and I said this right away, like on that night of the sub-district final, the back-to-back. Again, that's probably the
greatest
best,
environment, yeah.
The single best day of basketball that I've seen this season, combining both games. But it's like, there's just no, like, it felt at that point like these are clearly the two best teams in B. We're going to see a rematch of this, of both these games in the championships down in Lincoln. And there's just no way that they could live up to this game. The level of play.
Especially the girls' game was back and forth. I mean, just great shot after great shot and trading baskets. And
you had a game winner in the girls' game and then an overtime game in the boys. Like, they're just an incredible shot making between the two stars going back and forth in that girls' game. There was just no way that they were going to be able to match that level of play, I thought. And credit to Elkhorn North and Roncalli, who the teams that won those sub-district final games, for getting it done and doing it in dominant fashion. And start with the girls here, 49-36 win for Elkhorn North. And just defensively, they are so good. They make life. They harass you full court.
Glad you started with that, because their ability to switch and run and jump is almost unlike any. I mean, Millard South, who plays 94 feet, even they don't really have the ability to get out and run and jump on the perimeter without giving up anything.
And you do see them give up quite a bit
on the back end
for what they get. And Elkhorn North, that just doesn't happen quite as much. They're a little bit more disciplined in terms of getting back. They're maybe not quite as aggressive up top because they believe they can either stop you in the backcourt or get you take care of business in the front court. And they made life just miserable. Scott, 5, and 9 points in the first three quarters. And then they hit a couple shots late to kind of score a little bit there, but shot 31% from the field, made 2 threes all game. And that just wasn't – they're not going to win if they make 2 threes. And Britt Prince, just another fabulous performance, 21 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds.
Her game has become so complete.
In the semis, I believe it was 29, 10, 6 assists, 4 steals. Like, just phenomenal performance. And that's the thing. Like, I tweet about it. Like, I think obviously her scoring gets a lot of credit, and she's, I think, led Class B in scoring for sure. Maybe the state, I don't remember. But her passing might be her best skill, and her ability to set up her teammates and make high-level reads and on-the-money passes. She's just a phenomenal all-around player and best player on the floor on championship day, and that was the difference.
What'd you make of what we saw in Class A on the girls' side? Kennedy Williams, obviously, the emerging star in a very growing, popular 2024 class with both genders. But I mean, man, then there's McCabe, who just won't take no for an answer, along with Shepard and company.
So this is the one that I was not able to watch because it's the semifinal was not the one it was the one I was not able to watch. This one, defensively, 69 total points scored in the game. Like, it was. Offense was brutal both ways. There are a lot of. I think Southwest is going to be kicking themselves. They missed a lot of shots around the basket,
especially late. Man,
yeah, really could have made the difference there. But again, both teams shot under 40% from the field. But credit to Fremont for defending without fouling. Southwest 2 of 4 from the free throw line, and they did not make a 3. Fremont didn't shoot well from 3, but they hit 4 of them, and they were 9 of 11 from the line.
And perhaps the biggest one was the one to take the lead late, where it's just like, boy, that is clutch.
Yeah. And
right? I mean, hadn't gone all day, but
they made their run and then
stayed with it.
And McKenna Murphy drilled it from the left wing, I believe.
Yeah.
It was a huge shot, and at that point, that's kind of when Fremont took the lead and was able to kind of hold on down the stretch. But just credit to Fremont for the run that they've made. Obviously, getting so close a year ago, coming back, bringing back almost all those pieces, and making a run and finish it off this year. And great run for Southwest, too, coming in as a 5 seed, obviously, knocking off Omaha Central, another terrific defensive performance in that one.
Coach Barrett, coming in first year. I mean, yes, you have good players, but still, there has to be the buy-in and the culture maintained. No problem there.
No, and so just, Just kind of looking at the box score here, it's just kind of crazy seeing the numbers here that just nobody was able to, the level of defense. Obviously, Kennedy Williams sets the tone on that end for Southwest, and we saw in the semis, I believe, she was the one
handling the pressure from Millard South,
and she was the one defensively that took Maya Babbitt out of the game, from what I heard.
Yeah.
And
That it was amazing how Babbitt couldn't get any good looks, and then there were these stretches where she didn't even get any touches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh boy, she can't get free, can't shake free. I didn't know if that was more Coach Myers maybe not dialing up some plays to get her some touches, or maybe just confidence that Millard South could find other ways to score. But just got leaky on the back end with all the front court pressure. Lincoln Southwest made them pay fighting pressure with pressure.
So, yeah, great defensive run by Southwest, but Fremont in the end hit just enough shots to take control of that game and hoist the state title. First one for Fremont.
Not bad, right? Not bad. Let's close out here in our last couple minutes, and it's a shame that it's coming down to a couple minutes. We may just have to.
We can extend it.
We're not on the clock for podcasts. We're just on the clock for Cam's time. But
and I think you got blocked out the next time anyway. So we're going to intrude on your personal time since you were a little bit late here, so we can steal from that.
Let's do it. Let's go over to Boys B with Ron Colley. Basically led from start to finish. I think they were up 1 or 2 at the end of one and never looked back.
14-13 at the end of the first, going back and forth like, okay, this is going to be good. And then second half, 10-3, or second quarter, 10-3, kind of stretch it out. Third quarter, 13-10, stretch it out a little bit more. Fourth quarter, 15-9. Scott just could not find a way to make up any ground, and it just kept slipping away from them as the game went on, despite James Ninifu and Grant Dvorak trying to keep Scott in it. It just wasn't enough. And
what a difference a game makes, or a couple of days makes for Ninifu, who had kind of had his way up into that point in the state tournament, just running into a buzzsaw. Ron Colley was not going to allow him to get going.
No, he finished with a team-high 16 points, but it took him 16 shots and 6 free throws to get there. Grant Dvorak, who had been quiet earlier in the tournament, 15 points, hit 3 threes, 9 boards. Like he was trying to get them there, but credit to that Ron Colley defense, because you look at it outside. Charlie Burt banked in a 3 late, kind of in garbage time there.
Well, they couldn't get him going.
Outside of that, they had 3 total points besides Dvorak and Ninifu. You had 3 points between J.J. Farron and Jake Brack, who were terrific.
Jake couldn't even get touches, which I'm sure they'll look back at that and say, how did this matchup get away from us? But he couldn't even really get any good positions to score the basketball.
1 point, 0 of 2 shooting, 1 of 2 from the line, 2 turnovers. Yeah, that was
unbelievable night
for a guy 6'8", who's getting significant Division I interest at this point. He had some coaches there to watch him, I'm sure, and he just credit to Ron Colley. And the thing about them that makes them unique is just kind of the length and athleticism 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brent Heller is kind of shorter there at 5'9", but boy, does he work hard and move his feet.
How about Quincy's performance? I called him the X Factor coming into that one. He had a heck of a tournament.
Yeah, he did. And you just look at Evans, 6'1", and long, look longer than that. Orr's 6'3", Schwartz is 6'3", Lucas Brown, 6'5".
How about Orr defensively?
6'5". And that's
not going to get enough credit. He is one of the better two-way players going.
And I asked Coach Stoffel about that and kind of just what his versatility unlocks for them, because you see him guarding 5s, you see him guarding 1s. He'll guard whoever you need to. With those guys, they can switch so many ways because of guys like Schwartz, who is 6'3" as a guard in the backcourt, or 6'3", can guard anybody. Evans, really long and athletic, and then Brown's athletic as well. He's got some good height on him. So they just phenomenal defensive performance. I think this is probably the single most impressive defensive performance I saw in the tournament.
Yeah, they held Scott to single digits in 2 of the 4 quarters, and in their double-digit quarters couldn't muster more than 10.
Yeah.
Which, if you'd have asked me going in, I'd have told you I thought you were crazy. And how about Scott's ending to what was once on course for a magical season? Do you remember? And I know you do, because you don't forget anything. I would ask you questions like, they're playing against perfection. They're their own benchmark. How could they ramp this up to stay dialed in up until state tournament time? And then lo and behold, Roncalli gets them 2 out of their last 6 games. Like, that was an unbelievable performance from Roncalli.
And the crazy thing is, so you look at the season series, it's 2-2,
2-2.
points scored for each, 213 to 213.
Yeah.
I tweeted after it. So when's the rubber match? Yeah, let's. Anybody got a gym that we can set this up at? Because I want to see round 5.
Yeah, I just think, since what was the 23rd of February, because that was that Wednesday, that Roncalli has won 2 out of their last 5 games out against Omaha Skutt, which nobody's making that claim.
No, just phenomenal run by this Crimson Pride team. And I remember a couple years back with the Dotzler and Tate and Red and that clan, and they just.
I think were we part of the Tate and Red fan club? I think we were carrying that banner. I just liked him a ton, especially for a smaller guy that competed his brains out.
Great family. His dad's hilarious, just they came so close. They had to survive those double overtimes, crazy in the semi, to get so close and then just not have enough left against Skutt in the final. Here we are a couple years later, right back in there, and they're able to get it done, get over the hump this time. So credit to that program for kind of persevering and keep building, because you had obviously the great run with that class, and then they kind of fell off last year.
Yep.
And they were a fine team, but they
ran into a
buzzsaw.
Was that districts where they ran into Platteview? Might have been, or was it the tail end of the season where I'm like, I just don't think they're going to be able to score enough.
Yeah.
And I was at that game in person, and I thought offensively it was going to be a struggle for them to find points. But the way that they guarded this year and the evolution of a couple of guys to step up.
Schwartz and Evans, those 2 guys, the leap they made from the junior year to senior year, I think made all the difference in the world for them, because we talked about him highly and how productive he was, even as a junior when they weren't winning as much. As a senior this year, just kind of being the playmaker, setting everybody else up, and those other guys really stepped up offensively this year.
So let's hop over to A, because that one we talked on the show on Friday, and I sometimes I wish we could grab both you and Mike on the same day, just because I know you two have different perspectives, even though you guys both do the same job. I basically drummed it down to this. I said, if it's a wash between the Dotzler, Kyle III, Jason Green, kind of Dolazar, or David Harmon, I think is kind of how I phrased it. If I gave you those 2, that I felt like the X factors would be which younger guys kind of stepped up. I called it kind of the battle of the class of 2024, because those are those next integral pieces. And it was no disrespect to Enselman or Stuvie. I just felt like it was going to be that next wave that were going to be key, the Jaden Jacksons, the Eldon Turners, the Jacob Ropes, those guys kind of filling in the blanks. And it turns out that it was Harmon's aggressiveness and his ability to get downhill, and Miller North kind of sharing the offensive load much better than I think Bellevue West did.
Yeah, and Jane Jackson stepped up early, really got them going.
I thought, and he's streaky, so when he got going early, I'm like, these are the kinds of games. I've seen him go, 6 of 9. He's had some 5 of 8s where he can really get going from behind the arc, but then
he had some buckets inside. He had a couple of key and one late.
Very good offensive rebounder because he's sneaky bouncy, but there are just these strange stretches where I don't think he gets enough shot attempts.
Yeah.
I just don't think Jackson gets enough shots in order to really see what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and then you mentioned sophomores for Miller North as well. Isaiah McMorris had some really tough buckets that I think were important stretches.
Yeah, especially early on where I felt like, gosh, is Bellevue West going to pull away with this game from this early?
Yeah.
And he kind of kept that together early on in that game.
And so that was big. And then, like you said, David Harmon, best player on the floor for most of that game, finished with 26 on 9 of 16 shooting, 6 of 7 from the line, 2 of 3 from 3. That was a big key.
Yeah, he hit the 2-1. Yeah. When he hit those first 2 early, I'm thinking to myself, oh boy.
Yeah.
If you start letting him make perimeter jump shots, he's going to get downhill.
Added 8 rebounds, including a couple putbacks. So Bellevue West could not keep him out of the lane. And then the difference ended up being Jason Green. I said, well, we talked about this before. I kind of felt like we get in the game here. Jason Green is going to be the best player on the floor. And the start of the fourth quarter, he just said, all right, we're winning this game. And
did
came
it
out
defensively too.
That's exactly so. Both ends came out, took a charge, then set up McMorris on a great cut for a layup. Then he blocked
the weak set,
Dotzler, and it's
met him at the rim.
Well, and on this, I think that's the one where Dotzler actually got him up off his feet, and he hit the ground and got back up and blocked it on his second jump.
He hit him with the pogo stick move, right? Doink, doink.
And then after that, he tip in to put them back up, and suddenly. After that little flurry, they're up 12. It was a close game early in the fourth, and then that was basically ball game. Bellevue West hit a couple of threes late, and you kind of got that feeling, oh, is it happening again? Flashing back to 2 years ago when they gave up the 16-0 run to lose the game. But this time, too little, too late, and Jason Green told the guy, like, hey, in the huddle, I'm not letting us lose this game. We're not losing this game. And they were able to hit some free throws and then got a stop. And then Harmon was able to close the game out with that breakaway dunk.
Maybe it's just because I have a strange affinity for William Kyle III, who kind of dominates our talk, kind of off pod and sometimes on, just because of his evolution and I think his work ethic, and his ceiling is pretty high because you just seen him progress over these years. But didn't you get the sense during that game that he needed more touches? Preferably in like the third quarter, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be off of set pieces, but maybe like a two-man kind of game between he and Dotzler, considering Dotzler handles the ball so much, and William Kyle III shoots such a high percentage where you're like, maybe they could have calmed that game down, maybe playing like a two-man game between the two.
Yeah, by the way, that percentage was 82.6% for Kyle in the state tournament. He
Ridiculous.
did not miss until he made his first 18 shots before finally missing. And
not surprised hearing that number out loud, just watching how efficient he is. But I really felt like he could have compromised Millard North defensively.
So I really do think Green's presence in the paint was so in Bellevue West's heads and in Dotzler's head in particular. You look at it.
You got to go at him, though.
We know how talented of a player he is and what he's capable of, but 15 points on 5 of 19 shooting. And
are you talking about Dotzler?
Yeah, a lot of that was him trying to avoid the shot block, kind of contort his body in the air, put up really tough shots that just weren't going down. And that, I think a lot of that was Jason Green, who I think only had 2-3 blocks in the game, but
remember, we talked about the physicality in which Millard North can play with, and how I don't think, at least the times that I've seen them, Bellevue West responded very well to being touched physically, kind of pushed where they hold those hard hedges off of those ball screens where, those guards, you see them kind of get knocked a little bit, where I don't think that's how they prefer to play. And Millard North excels at it because they play so hard for 32 minutes.
Yeah, so ultimately, Bellevue West only had 30 points in the paint. And I just don't think they made great decisions just based on the way that Millard North was defending them. Again, Green's presence was the biggest reason for that, but then they had obviously some length and athleticism around him. And
were you surprised that Orope only had the 4 field goal attempts, or is because of the matchups, which we talked about? Who would he guard? How would Dolezal or Green be able to pull him out away from the rim? If Millard North went small, where would he be? I felt like they kind of took advantage of him defensively, but he didn't get a lot of offensive opportunities either.
Yeah, and he had some really nice plays early, and you're like, okay, so going into it, I had not seen, as we do this podcast, I had not seen Bellevue West since Orope was back down the stretch. Okay. So the tournament was the first time I got to see them play with him. And with some
there's
of the stuff
some give and take, isn't there? Right?
And like okay.
Prep went right at him and made him guard, but in return they didn't have anybody that could guard him either.
And it does change them, give them that high-low game. There is a different way to use both Kyle and Orope. He had some great offensive rebounds, knocked down that 3 in earlier rounds, but early on, it did look like okay, here we go. He made some big plays, but like you said, they were able to neutralize him down the stretch. Only played 20 minutes, 6 points, and Dolezal is kind of the senior that's the kind of the forgotten guy there of that group. Obviously,
completely agree.
We know Harmon's story and kind of the fantastic rise and the great senior year, and everybody knows Jason Green at this point. But Dozal's a guy that he just had a phenomenal game. 10 points, missed one shot, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He was out there playing defense, like you said. I think he really was he and McMorris, getting those guys to supplement what Green and Harmon did. That ultimately was the difference because WS couldn't get enough to overcome that when you've got 4 different guys scoring 9+ points with Harmon kind of leading the way.
And how about Miller North from the foul line? I think they finished 14 of 17 from the game. 2 of those 3 misses were by Isaiah McMorris. Everybody else was either perfect or
Harmon
only missed one.
yeah.
And that was David Harmon, who went 6 of 7. I mean, you go 14 of 17 from the foul line in a game like that at that level, you're going to win more than you lose.
And 8 of 11 in the fourth quarter.
Which was
enough
crunch
to kind of
time.
hold on to that. So credit to Miller North. We talked about all season kind of the jockeying up top with the 3 seeds, and they all beat each other. They all played well in different stretches. But by the end of the year, Miller North had really put it together, and that was a phenomenal 67-57 was the final in that one. So credit to Miller North getting done back-to-back with 2 very different teams. Obviously, Green was
Agreed.
on both, but this year's team is completely different. You had Harmon and Dozal stepping up after playing minimal roles last year off the bench and being lead guys, not only best players, but leaders as well.
I think the junior class will be led by the Jake Bracks, the Connor Millikins, the Tate Advadis, the Josiah Dolzers of the world. When you're taking a look at next year, is it whose 2024 class steps up? Because between Gretna and Westside and Bellevue West and Millard North, you have some really, really good 2024s, just to name a few. Omaha South will boast a few. How do you kind of look at the evolution of who takes the next step?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. To be honest, I think my brother asked me this question kind of, all right, so who's losing the most and who's bringing the most back? And I was like, I have not even had any time to even think about that at this point, just kind of the marathon that was the last week. So I haven't really started thinking, all right, who's bringing back what? But it is, I think you mentioned kind of the names at the top of 2023 class, but it is going to be that 2024 and how they kind of fill out the rosters throughout, particularly in Class A and some of these other higher level schools.
You take a look at just take Miller North and Westside, for instance. Who lose a Meeks, a Logan Wilson, a Reggie Thomas, a Payson Gillespie, Charlie Davis, a Jason Green, a David Harmon, a Dolezal, but you get a real young influx. Bellevue West may be in the best shape because Dolzer will be a senior.
They've got a rope to replace Kyle.
As part of that sophomore class, you get Stuvie coming back. You get Eldon Turner and those guys, Jaden Jackson, who were part of that 2024 class. When you look at seniors, it's going to be Advadi, Dotzler, Milliken, Jake Brack will probably lead the way with those respective schools, right?
And then I think Southwest is
Ryland Smith.
They're going to have to make the run this year. Obviously, Pius this year was their kind of when the seniors kind of came together and all right, there's a chance to make a run. Next year, I think Southwest, Ben Hunziker is a huge piece to lose, and they obviously lose a couple other seniors, but they've got a really good. I think their freshman class was really good this year. They've had some really good sophomores on their JV team. If some of those guys can kind of step up and fill out the roster holes, and then you come back and that junior class can, or Ryland Smith kind of leading the way there, they've got a chance to make a leap this year, but they're going to have to go out and put in a lot of work this year to kind of take a step forward from what we saw this season, because we liked them both coming in and then they kind of petered off toward the end, but Ben Hunziker was kind of the heart and soul of that team. So that is going to be a difficult piece to replace, but they've got a lot of young talent as well.
Congratulations to all our state champs out there, boys and girls. Jacob and I were happy to bring it to you. 50 minutes of good stuff on this week's podcast. Who knows what we'll do next week? Maybe we'll give ourselves a 1 or 2 day vacation. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to transition. It's a little too soon for football, but ask and ye shall receive. We'll be back with more. We'll figure out a game plan on what's next, but whatever it is, don't you miss it. It's Nebraska Preps postgame. That's Jacob Padilla. I am ODB.
a Hurrdat Media Production.